馬車迎えに来るの迎えに来るのね誰かが私を連れて行くのね白い花の道へ風のふるさとへ連れて行くのね連れて行くのね
Good day, sir. You must be Mr. Matthew Cuthbert. I'm so pleased to meet you. And I'm very pleased to finally be in Carmody.
On a warm June day in 1870, Matthew Cuthbert went to Carmody Station to pick up an orphan boy who was coming to live with him and his sister Marilla. But instead of a boy, he found a little girl at the station, a girl with red hair and freckles.
I never dreamed that the place would be this beautiful. Why didn't you tell me that there's this big lake here, Mr. Cuthbert? Oh, what a beautiful sound the wheels make on the wooden bridge. That sound is lovely. It's like music to my ears, Mr. Cuthbert. Oh, please stop, won't you? Beautiful those blossoms are. They make the tree look like a prima ballerina dancing over the water on her toes. It's so beautiful here, Mr. Cuthbert.
Well, shall we drive on to the farm now? Yo!
Goodbye for now and sleep well, beautiful lake of shining waters. I always say sleep well to the things and the people I'm fond of, Mr. Cuthbert. They like to hear it, because then they have sweet dreams. The Lake of Shining Waters was pleased because I spoke to it. Now it's smiling back at me.
You say Barry's Pond is smiling at you? Do you really believe that, my girl?
For me, its name will be Lake of Shining Waters. Yes, the name's quite right. When I said that, the feeling struck me. Whenever I find the correct name for something, I always get the same feeling. Do you have that kind of feeling, Mr. Cuthbert?
Yes, I think so. I get that feeling when I see green caterpillars in my cucumber patch making themselves at home. Oh, I simply can't abide caterpillars, worms, and all kinds of creepy crawlies.
Oh, perhaps we're not talking about the same feeling. Or are we? May I ask another question? Why is the lake called Barry's Pond? It sounds so ordinary.
Well, I think it's probably because Mrs. Barry lives over there in that house, and she says the lake belongs to her. Our place, Green Gables, is behind that hill.
Oh, really? Mr. Cuthbert, the Barrys don't have a little daughter, do they? I actually mean not so little. Like me, I was thinking of a young girl of my own age, you see.
Yes, they do have a daughter. She must be 11, I suppose. She's called Diana.
Ah, that's precisely the name I would pick for my best friend in the whole world.
My girl, you seem to know a great deal, but even you cannot see into the future. Well, we're nearly there now. Look, you can already see Green Gables
Please don't
from...
say anything. Not a word. Don't give the game away. I want to spot it myself. There it is. That must be the one.
Yes, my child. You chose the right one. But I'm sure you knew exactly what our house would look like because Mrs. Spencer told you about it.
It wasn't like that at all. The way Mrs. Spencer described the place, it sounded like every second house along this road. Really, I didn't have the faintest idea of what it was like. But I knew it was my new home the moment I laid eyes on Green Gables. It's just like a dream. My poor little arm must be bruised black and blue all over, from the shoulder down to the elbow and back again. I've been pinching myself, you see, just to make sure I'm not fast asleep. I was afraid I would wake up from my dream. But now I can believe it at last. I'm nearly at my new home. So this is Green Gables. It's much more beautiful than I had ever imagined, Mr. Cuthbert.
Matthew Cuthbert, now what's this you've brought home with you? And where's the little boy?
There was no little boy to be found at the station. Only this little girl. Sorry about that, Marilla.
There was no boy? That's impossible. I can't believe it. We expressly asked Mrs. Spencer for a boy because he could help us with all the work on the farm.
Yes, well, it was either a misunderstanding or else Mrs. Spencer must have sent this little girl on purpose. And that would make sense from what I've seen.
Is that so? And did you speak to Mrs. Spencer about it?
I'm afraid not. I got to the station too late for that. And there was this little girl waiting for me. What was I supposed to do?
Something sensible for once.
Please tell me, has something gone wrong? You don't want to take me just because I'm not a boy, am I right? I'm so silly. I should have known that things would go wrong. They usually do. It was too good to last. How could I have let myself be taken in like this again? Will I ever learn? Oh, this is so awful. What can I do? I don't know. The only thing that I can think of is to burst into tears. Now I've got nothing to look forward to. I'm just a poor little thing.
Only Anne could say whether she was crying real tears, but she was certainly unhappy, angry, and very disappointed. Matthew and Marilla looked at each other without saying a word. Neither of them knew what to do. They needed a boy to work on the farm, but they felt sorry for this extraordinary little girl. Somehow Anne had managed to touch their hearts.
Come on, that's enough. There's no sense in crying like that.
It makes no sense, does it? What should I do then? Laugh? Imagine that you were an orphan and at long last you had found the very kind of home you had dreamed of. And then when you arrived there, you were told you weren't wanted just because you're not a boy. Wouldn't that be enough to make you cry?
You'll be all right, my girl. Calm down. Please don't cry like that. Stop it now. Come on, that's enough. Matthew, what is the child's name, anyway?
Sorry, Marilla, I can't help you there, I'm afraid.
My dear, won't you tell me your name, please?
The best thing to do would be if you called me by the name Cordelia.
What? Good heavens, child. Cordelia? Is that really and truly your given name?
No, not exactly, but I'd like people to call me Cordelia. I think it's ever such a stylish name. And it would go very well with my fiery-coloured hair, too.
Aha! I don't know whether to burst out laughing or throw a fit. Young lady, could you please do us the honour of introducing yourself?
My name is Anne Shirley. But I always insist that everyone spells Anne with a letter E at the end. But my name doesn't matter at all. For all I care, it would be Cordelia, Anne, or even Victoria. And I would still want to stay at Green Gables with you. Oh, please, please. I fibbed about my real name because Anne is so unromantic.
You think your name is unromantic? I've never heard the like. As far as I'm concerned, there's no nicer name for a girl. I think it's an honest, decent name.
Maybe for other girls, but the name Cordelia would suit my personality much better. Even when I was a little child, I used to think how wonderful it would be to be called Cordelia. I also consider Geraldine as a suitable name for me. But I suppose if it has to be Anne, then please just don't forget to pronounce the E at the end of my name.
Is the difference between Anne with an E and without the E important to you?
Oh, yes, there's a world of difference. Anne without the E is a very common name, but Anne with the E is so special. It's just that I can't quite explain it, but it sounds a lot better to me. My ears prefer it with that spelling. Just a tiny little E, and it makes such a big difference. Isn't that quite remarkable? Although I'm willing to drop the E as long as you let me stay here.
Oh, it makes no difference whether you're Anne with or without an E, my dear. Didn't Matthew explain to you how things are with us on the farm? We desperately need a boy who can help us with the work.
I'm beginning to understand that. But Mrs. Spencer really did tell me that a girl was wanted, and I was so overjoyed when I heard her say that I would have a home. People only ask for boys at the orphanage. They seem to think that only boys are useful. But people forget that girls can work just as hard as boys. Oh, why do I always end up in tears? And I wonder why you didn't leave me behind at the station, Mr. Cuthbert. It would have been so much easier for me if I had never seen that white way of delight and that wonderful lake of shining waters.
I'm not following her, Matthew. Explain what she's talking about.
Oh, Marilla, it's not easy to explain, you know. This little girl and I had a conversation as we drove back from the station, and I showed her the neighborhood. We can talk about it later. I haven't even unhitched the horse yet, and I must give him a rub down and feed him some oats before I do anything else.
Tell me, when you were on the train, did Mrs. Spencer have another child with her?
No, only little Lily, and she's Mrs. Spencer's favourite. She loves her and treats her as if she were her own daughter. It's not surprising Lily is pretty. Please tell me the truth. If I were pretty and I didn't have red hair, would you then at least consider taking me in?
Not even then. It has nothing to do with you, my dear. We need a boy who can help Matthew with the farm work. It's that simple. But I do feel sad for you, Cordelia, or Anne with an E, or whatever you'd like to be called. Give me your hat. It's not good manners to wear a hat indoors.
Yes.
Hats are worn in the street, and definitely not at table. Why don't you eat? Doesn't your food taste nice?
I'm sorry, I've got no appetite. It's because I'm desperate and I'm feeling down in the dumps. Aren't you the same? How can you eat a single mouthful when you're down in the dumps?
I wouldn't know about that, dear. I've never been down in the dumps, you see.
Never been? Have you at least tried to imagine what it's like to be down in the dumps? Would you like me to tell you about it?
I'm not interested.
Oh, that's a pity because I could describe it for you. It's a very unpleasant feeling. You can't eat anything at all, you see, because there's this big lump in your throat and you can't swallow properly. Nothing will go down your throat. In fact, it gets so bad that you can't even swallow a chocolate bonbon. You know, I once had a chocolate bonbon, but that was a few years ago already. I almost couldn't believe how wonderful it tasted. Do you know, I sometimes dream that someone has given me a whole bag of chocolate bonbons. But whenever I want to eat one, I wake up. I know it's very rude of me, but tonight I cannot swallow a single bite. It looks so good, but even if I wanted to, I couldn't swallow a thing.
She's tired, poor little thing. She's had a long and tiring journey. Why don't you take her upstairs and tuck her into bed, Marilla?
Come along, Anne. Nightgown?
Yes, I've got two and I brought both of them. But they're not pretty at all. They're not stylish, and I think they're old-fashioned and the colours really don't suit me. But if you're brought up in an orphanage like me, you can't be choosy, can you? But you can dream sweet dreams just as well in a dowdy old nightgown in an orphanage. It doesn't have to have a beautiful lace collar. It all boils down to what you're used to.
Now, that's quite enough talking for one night, young lady. Get undressed and put on your nightgown. I'll be back in a moment to fetch the candle in case you forget to put it out. I don't want you burning the house down in the middle of the night. Good night, child.
How dare you actually call this a good night? You have no heart, and tonight is going to be the worst night of my whole life.
Well, this is a pretty pickle we're in. And this is what happens when you rely on strangers instead of doing things yourself. One of us will have to go and see Mrs. Spencer early tomorrow morning and have a serious talk with her, Matthew. This little girl must be sent straight back to the orphanage.
Well, I suppose you're right, Marilla.
What do you mean, suppose I'm right? Aren't you absolutely sure yourself?
Well, Marilla, she really is such a nice little thing, isn't she? It would really be awful for the poor child if we sent her back. She's dead set on staying with us, you know that.
Matthew Cuthbert, I seriously hope you're not trying to make me change my mind about sending that little child back to the orphanage.
No, well, I mean to say, maybe, honestly, I don't know what we should do about the girl, Marilla. Somehow, I really like that little girl. But then again, on the other hand, I know it's impossible to keep her on the farm. It's unfortunate.
That goes without saying. But what can a little girl like her do for us?
Not very much, Marilla, but maybe we can do something for her instead.
Matthew Cuthbert, somehow this little oddity of a girl has managed to bewitch you, I see.
Yes, but you know, Marilla, she has quite an interesting personality. You should have heard all the things she had to say on the way here in the buggy. She's very clever.
Ah, one can hardly fail to notice that she's a talker. That's what worries me above all else. I can't stand precocious, talkative children. I have already made it quite clear that I will take in a boy. I don't want a girl. She's going back tomorrow. We need a boy on this farm. We've discussed the subject at length.
If that's really your only objection, I could always take on a farmhand for you. And then Anne could stay on and help you in the house. She could keep you company, too.
I don't need any company. I'm far too busy for that. We've talked long enough about this. She must go back.
Yes, Marilla. If you've set your heart on it, I can't stop you. I'm going to bed.
Good.
When Anne woke the next morning, she ran over to the window at once. Again, she looked at everything that had enchanted her the day before. But now she knew that she would have to leave it all behind. What will happen to her now? That story will be told in our next episode.